Bit about what I've been doing in my research and what I've been doing with Galxyz LLC with my husband Dan Hawk. So I really started in my career with high definition television. I was looking for light sources for displays. And I evaluated a number of different light sources. I met Dr. John Hall from Gilla Laboratories and went to talk to him about building me a display, a laser projector for the motion picture theaters. So this was in 1984, before there was anything of high definition television. I met Dr. Sugimoto, who was at the time in charge of the NHK laboratories in Japan. And I can still remember having a discussion with him about whether we should call it HGTV, HDTV, or HRTV for high resolution TV. And we decided on HDTV, so I happened to be helpful in actually calling it HDTV with Dr. Sugimoto at the time. So that was in the days when we were trying to go from end-to-end optical network systems, which it turns out are very important for the United States government and a number of other people in terms of command and control centers. So I found myself right in the middle of the action with laser projectors in those days. That was in the late 1980s. So after that, I went to Paris, and while I was in Paris, I found a man whose great-grandfather had invented the light-emitting diode and knew Nikola Tesla personally. And they had some lamps there that I thought were pretty incredible. So I became involved with them. And over a period of many years, we developed that into what we call our thick film dielectric electroluminescent lamps with a micro laser cavity array. And so these are flat and flexible lamps, which hopefully we'll find the photograph here of that. Right up here, it's not showing very well, but that's that. It's a piece of paper that was taken in the dark. So that is exactly the same spectrum as the sun, and it uses only milliamps of power. It is an inorganic lamp, and so it has a long lifetime. So what I discovered was that there were a lot of missing things for a full photobioreactor system, and I started looking into microbubble machinery and everything imaginable. So to make a long story short, it took me 30 years from the time I started until today to develop all of my own inventions into full systems, including the photobioreactor system. So this is an example of a photobioreactor system from a friend of ours who let us use this slide. It's just a little prettier than the one I have. But as you can see, there's a lot involved in a photobioreactor system, especially if it's a closed-loop photobioreactor system, which would be needed for the space environment. You have to know what's coming in and what's going out, and you have to know exactly what the parameters are at all times, the heat, basically the limiting factors. So in 1901, there was a man who developed what he called the limiting factors for photosynthesis. He said you have to have heat, light, nutrients, and water. There are a lot more, I found out over time, but the most important of these is light. Plants photosynthesize very differently depending on what kind of light they like and where they're located and the time of year or the temperature. There are 2 algal blooms in the North Sea, for example, one in the spring and one in the fall. And this is where you have the most active photosynthesis on Earth at this point in time. I don't know if that's going to continue with the lack of copepods that we're finding from one of our colleagues, Dr. Howard Dryden, who's pointed out that the ocean copepods are disappearing because of ocean pollution and plastics mostly. So I studied this for a long time and came up with the ability to tailor my lamps to only produce those nanometer ranges that are needed for photosynthesis. And so I have what I call 100% plus PAR. Now, PAR stands for photosynthetically active radiation, and this is a typical term that's used as measurement for lamps. And the PAR is only based on visible radiation from 400 nanometers to about 700. So what I discovered is that there's a lot in the ultraviolet and the infrared that is not known of, and there are some that are more powerful than others and needed at different times of the plant, especially if it's a higher order plant, such as the ones that Borja just showed you, especially in the area of carotenoids and supporter capabilities. So what I did was I came up with a way to mass manufacture these lamps with a tailored spectrum for whatever it is that I'm going to be growing. So I have successfully done a number of experiments with what I call animal units. And the animal units are, can you put the energy and mass balance on the screen for me, please? Thank you. So the animal units are helping to supply the nutrients, but I first put it through vermiculture. No, that's the drawing. I first put it through the vermiculture operation because it turns out that worm bodies get rid of all of the E. coli, and nobody knows how they do this, even to this day. But if you put all of the animal wastes through vermiculture operations, you end up with really very, very good nutrients that are that do not have the bacterias in them that are harmful and that are used or not supposed to be used, sprayed directly on plant growth. So as you know, animal farming is a big problem for pollution in the world. The runoff from animal agriculture and big giant feedlots is destroying the oceans. It's getting into the water table, it's flowing into the oceans. This raw sewage is going into the oceans, and I think 80% of the world's sewage is going into the oceans untreated. And so this kind of thing is what is going to be needed to really solve this problem. We must move to massive vermiculture capabilities with the animal wastes and put it through vermiculture and use the worm castings for closed-loop photobioreactors and vertical farming if we intend to survive and feed the world in the future. So we find that north of about New Mexico line, we need additional light to grow food year-round in a greenhouse. So there is a different kind of light also in different parts of the world that are needed for different types of seasons. And some plants are, I like to say that they have a memory, I find, that is very interesting. So the photobioreactor, the lamps have a wonderful capability of full surface emission, and this means that it's not like a screen that you see with pixels on it where you have a dot pitch and 2/3 of it is actually dark underneath, and you've got these tiny little pillars that are spreading the light from the top. And it looks uniform to you, but it's actually only 1/3 as bright as a full surface emission lamp. And so a full surface emission lamp emits light in all directions, and that means that no matter what angle the light harvesting tubules are located, especially in single cells, they will accept a photon of the color that they need for that part of their growth cycle. It goes down a tubule, it hits the light harvesting complex where it is turned into chemical energy for the plant. So I have the fastest growth rate of single cell algal biomass in the world with my lamps at this point in time. So what I discovered was that I also have a fluidic oscillator that I've licensed, and that gets rid of the problem of a mechanical, loud, noisy, heavy piece of machinery. So with that one addition and a couple more things that were really important, I was able to have a space capability with what I call a near solid state closed loop photobioreactor system. So if you can find the energy and mass balance. Okay, yeah.
I'm going to try to just add.
Okay. So I wanted to show you very quickly what I designed with a chemical engineer that took me over a year to do is the energy and mass balance for a closed loop photobioreactor system. I used it to produce oil, but with an animal unit of cattle. And so I do know there it is, right there. Yeah. If you can make that really big, Dan, I don't know if that's going to be of any good. Okay, well, you can see how complicated it is here. You can't really see it, but I'm going to make this all available later. So this was an energy and mass balance. This energy and mass balance is what we're going to need for the moon, for Mars, for Saturn, for Pluto, for wherever it is that we're going to go, and for the Earth, for that matter. It's all of the things that go into a system and all of the things that come out of a system and how they might be looped back around for reuse and how they are all in balance. It includes everything from gases to liquids to light to everything. So up in this left-hand corner where you can't see it is 3,000 acre-feet of raw water. So 3,000 acre-feet of raw water per year is about the size of 2 medium lakes. And if you had that much water, you would put that into about 89 banks of photobioreactors that would be about 6 foot by 6 foot cube size. And out of that, after you're all done, you would have 1.84 gallons of oil per minute. So that's how it works. And it produces a massive amount of oxygen, and all in one area. So what to do with the oxygen? Well, on Earth, we might be able to put it in tanks and use it for hospitals because it's volatile. But in space, there's another use for it. So with my husband, Dan Hawk, we at Galxyz LLC have come up with what we call our water ball. So we have found a way to take hydrogen gas from space and to utilize the off gas from our photobioreactors of oxygen and produce water in space. It's a very nice flow rate, and I just would like to say that it may not be any longer necessary to go and find water in space. We might just be able to make water in space if we were able to put these photobioreactors up and get them operational. Now, there is a problem. The problem is temperature. What do you do about the temperature in space? On Earth, you can handle that pretty well. So it just so happens that my husband, Dan Hawk, has just successfully built, operated, and I saw it with my own eyes, the world's first nuclear battery. And it is a nano-nuclear generator. Is that how you're characterizing it now? And it's still going strong as we speak. We're going to be coming out with this in a little while, but it's a shocking and incredible new development, and these in series will be able to power everything from your cell phones all the way up to, as he mentioned in his speech, the ability to survive the lunar night. So we're very excited about this at Galxyz LLC. We're a startup company, even though both of us have been around for a long, long time. We would like to see all of these things happen before we get too old. And just wanted to let you know that kudos to my friend Dr. John Hall for letting me know 35 years ago that it was going to take me 50 years to do what I wanted to do. And it probably will, but I hope that I'll be around for 50 years, as I told him then, to finish it. So the photobioreactor is our big thing right now, along with all of our other inventions, but we also have an identity of things in space operation that involves my old laser projector with Dr. Hall and our laser scanner, which is called a multi-deflector. The multi-deflector can scan very fast. It scans more than one line at once. And so these are now very small, and we've also very close to an optical clock on a chip that is about the size of a piece of sushi that can operate in space. And with the combination of what Dr. Hall won the Nobel Prize for with the optical comb, this optical clock and optical scanner can be used to scan debris and other items in space. And we might just have the ability to, as my friend Bev Corwin and I worked for years on the Identity Ecosystem Steering Group together. And thank you, Bev, for helping us out with this lovely space and all the things that you've done for me over the years. And so with the identity of things in space, which is similar to what we do with medical devices on the panel that I was on with the Department of Commerce NIST Identity Steering Systems Group for medical devices, I think the same type of operation can work in space. So we are working on that very hard. Our due regard software comes into play there, as does Vitaly's software, and as does a number of our colleagues and friends and what they're doing, and you'll hear from some of them later on today. So I wanted to just say that I really appreciate all of you being here. I know that there have been a few glitches with the sites and the locations and all of that, but I appreciate all of you being here today, and thank you very much.